We got full sun. So welcome everyone. I am Rich Nightingale. It's my privilege to be the president and CEO of Westhab. I'm joined by some wonderful friends that you know well and that you will hear from very soon. Just wanted to mention how excited we are about this funding and about what it really does. So Westhab loves building shiny, new, affordable housing. It's our favorite thing to do. But we also need to preserve the housing that already exists in our community. Right. People get so caught up on affordable housing, what's affordable. It's the housing we need. It's the housing that our community needs. It's people's homes. This $500,000 funding that was championed by these individuals to my left and my right will help renovate 79 apartments in 9 different buildings, including the building behind me. The building behind me is a perfectly nice and lovely place to call home, but it needs some TLC, and that's what we're all about here with this funding and this award. It is so important we preserve the housing we have while we strive to expand the supply of critically needed affordable housing in our community. So this is just a fantastic day. These gentlemen championed this from the beginning, and we're very pleased to be joined by Westhab staff from all of the offices here, some residents and friends. So it's really exciting to welcome our Senate Majority Leader and our New York State Senator, who always champions affordable housing and the work of Westhab, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you. Well, thank you very, very much. And let me just say, Westhab does a great job. Rich, and if you're part of Westhab, raise your hands. A whole bunch of people. We give a round of applause to all of you for the great job you do. You are well known not just here in Yonkers and in Westchester County, but throughout the state for the wonderful work that you do. I care a lot, as Rich mentioned, about housing. Oh, Nader, we were looking for you.
Well, my pleasure to be here.
Good.
Senator, always a pleasure. Congressman?
Thank you, Nader. I was at Nader's inauguration. His daughter is now my intern, and his chief of staff was my intern.
Nice.
So we have a lot of Nader connections. Thank you for being here. Anyway, so when I got to the Congress, I got on the Housing Subcommittee, and I was on the Housing Subcommittee for all my 18 years in the House, and this is my 24th year in the Senate. I was on for 20. Then when I became Majority Leader, I had to get off. A Minority Leader, I had to get off committees. And I started out, one of the first things I did as a young assemblyman was organize tenants throughout our neighborhood in Brooklyn. I forgot your name, ma'am. Maris comes from my neighborhood in Brooklyn. She was the center of Sheepshead Bay's basketball team, I was told. And I told her the motto of Madison's basketball team, their rival, which I went to, which was, "We may be small, but we're slow." Jamal laughs at that joke every time I tell it. Good for you, Jamal.
It's hilarious. It's pretty funny.
Anyway, so yes, I was one of the first people with really legal aid to help me. But when they weren't giving heat, the landlords, in the middle of winter, and we wanted to do rent strikes, but they said, oh, they're just not paying the rent because they don't want to pay the rent. So legal aid helped me set up escrow accounts, and we actually eventually changed the law so it was legal. It was always legal, but so it was prescribed by law that you could pay into an escrow account and use that money to pay for the heating company, the oil company, or whatever company for the heating. So I've had a long history in helping build affordable housing. I've written and authored many of the laws that are involved. So I care a lot about this, and I can tell you from my experience, Rich and his group do a fabulous, fabulous job. So thank you all. Of course, we have my dear friend, and he's doing a great. I want to tell the people of Yonkers and of all of the Hudson Valley who he represents or will represent, who he has represented and will represent, and in the Bronx. This is a hardworking, dedicated Congress member. A month does not go by. Well, a month. I don't mean a month. A week does not go by where he hasn't emailed me about some issue to work on. Really, he's so dedicated. He's great. So we're lucky to have him here. And this is not political, but I've endorsed him and he's endorsed me. Okay. Nader, I mentioned, who's really on the ball, is our assembly member. Where'd you go? There you are. And I thank him for being here as well. We also have Samantha Chiafalo. She's the Assistant Vice President of Property and Asset Management for Westhab. It doesn't say for what. For Westhab, great. And we have two residents, one of whom I know through his church in the Bronx. We have Pastor Pedretto Graham Brown. He's a resident of 97 Bruce Avenue, and Mrs. Frankie Graham Brown as well, and Zola, their beautiful daughter, right? Yes, okay, good. All right. Now let me put my microphone down so I can rearrange the pages here. Thank you.
How do I help?
This is okay. Okay. All right. So, it's no secret, we all know that Westchester has an affordable housing crisis. Housing's a human right, but for too many families and residents in the country, but particularly here in Westchester where the cost is so high, there are no options. That's the problem. Or worse, the people are forced to live in aging units that live in aging units that put their health, their safety, and their quality of risk on the line. Listen to this. According to the most recent I didn't mention George Latimer. Sorry. He's not on my sheet, but he's always here and is amazing in the job he does as our great county executive of close to 1 million people. And it doesn't say George Latimer. He's great. He's great. And we heard stories about him in his youth recently at the funeral of our great Westchester County Democratic leader. But in any case, it's very expensive here. Now, Westchester housing needs assessment. The need for affordable housing in Westchester is for 80,000 units. When you have a population of what, about 950? A little over a million. Westchester has grown. And 80,000 units are needed. Remember, there's probably 2, 3, 4 people in each unit. It shows you the desperate need we have for affordable housing. And here in Southwest Yonkers, 65% of the households, 24,000 families, can't afford the high cost of living in Westchester County. So, as Mr. Nightingale mentioned, as Rich mentioned, we want to build new housing. We need that. And Jamal and I have worked very, very hard in the reconciliation bill to get new housing, as part of our program. But we also have to rehab the existing housing, whether it's public housing, which we have a good deal of here in Yonkers, the 3rd largest city in New York State, or privately held housing. And that's what we're here to do today. One of the biggest issues is not just creating affordable housing, but upgrading and repairing our housing stock. With us today, we have, as I mentioned, Pastor Graham Brown and Frankie Graham Brown, who have for months been dealing with outdated and dangerous living conditions here, right in the building behind us. Far too often, units fall into disrepair with age. That's natural. And because of limited options, people have to stay here. They can't move. So they're subject to outdated conditions and oftentimes dangerous conditions. You see far too often the units fall into disrepair with age, and they're not fixed up. So then people are either forced to move, and that probably increases their costs, which they don't want to do, or worse, get stuck in living in places with leaking roofs, broken windows, and so many other bad conditions, because there's nothing else affordable for them. In some places, you might be able to move, okay? Landlord, you don't fix this up, I'm getting out of here. But in Westchester, everybody knows it's very hard to get out of here because there's no other place to go because housing is so expensive, okay? So today, Congressman Bowman and I come with good news, and that is we've secured $500,000, $500,000 for Westhab to bolster affordable housing right here. This will rehabilitate 79 units across 3 buildings here in our Southwest Yonkers, and that's going to mean dozens and dozens of families will now have affordable, safe housing, and that is a big thing. Housing is a human right. When you don't have good housing, a lot else goes down the drain. It affects your kids' education. It affects your own ability to commute and get to a good job. It affects lots of different things. So what the money here will do is preserve these units, allow the families to stay in their homes, and ensure that they're going to receive the modern upgrades they require. Families like the Grahams who are with us can get the repairs they need for a safe, healthy living environment for themselves and, as importantly, their children. This beautiful young lady who is here with us. And so it's very important that we get this done. And it doesn't just benefit the families who live in the units. When you create high-quality housing like Westhab does, not only keeps people safe, but it brings new businesses and jobs to our communities, improves the access to essential services that give people the chance to build a better, more fulfilling life for them, and even more importantly, to each parent, to their children. So that is so important as well. And the funding comes on the heels. This isn't the only thing we're doing. It represents it. I pushed as majority leader to get major increases in home dollars for homelessness that we got for places like Yonkers in the American Rescue Plan. Yonkers got $4.6 million in home funding. And then, of course, we got the city of Yonkers and the county of Westchester, a lot of general funding through COVID that can be used and should be used for things like rehabbing housing. Westchester, as George always acknowledges, got $187 million. I held up the whole ARP bill until we got relief for our county and our local governments.
And our schools.
And our schools as well, that is correct. But this money can be used for housing. So it's a tremendous down payment helping the people of Yonkers finally achieve some degree of equity in housing. Congressman Bowman and I are proud to have delivered these funds, and we'll keep working. There's more to go. We have many more units that need to be rehabbed through either this program, the home program, or the ARP program, but we're going to keep at it because housing is a human right. Housing is essential, and the more we can rehabilitate housing, the better we can use our most important resource in Yonkers, in New York, and America, and that is our human resource, our people. So with that, let me turn it over to Congressman Jamal Bowman. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
He
Chuck.
complimented me on my outfit, but he's always a better dresser than me.
This is a fly jacket right there.
Thank you.
It's pretty nice, pretty
Thank you,
nice.
thank you.
So, Chuck, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for your support and for your mentorship. It's incredibly humbling to be a freshman member of Congress and to get there, and the Senate Majority Leader represents your state. And for him to provide me access and support and opportunity. When I email him every week, as he says, he emails me right back. When I send him a text message every week, he texts me right back. When I call him, he calls back. And he provides guidance, he provides mentorship, and he provides leadership. And during our last press conference, when we were celebrating the sewage money we both worked hard to get from Mount Vernon, you called us a tremendous tag team and a dynamic duo, which led to George Lattimore singing the song "Whoop, There It Is" by the tag team. So I appreciate that. I would liken us, Chuck, more to Run DMC and the Kings of Rock. I'm Jam Master Jay, you're DMC. And that's how we're going to roll going forward. So thank you, Chuck, for your leadership. Thank you, George, for being here and your continued leadership at the county level. Huge shout out to Rich Nightingale and his leadership and his work at Westhab. Please give him a round of applause. I'm crying because I'm emotional about the housing, but I'm also crying because I have terrible allergies. So bear with me.
Very bad allergy season.
Oh my goodness. Another big round of applause to the Westhab staff and everyone here representing Westhab. Please give them a round of applause. When I first got into office, even prior to getting into office, we identified affordable housing and low-income housing as a priority for our office. When we went to the county to meet with County Executive Latimer, what did we talk about? We talked about affordable housing. When I met with Mayor Mike Spano to have a conversation about our priorities, what did we talk about? We talked about affordable housing. And obviously, when you talk about affordable housing in Yonkers and Westchester County, you're going to run into Rich and you're going to run into Westhab. And I swear, it seemed like every week I was visiting an affordable housing facility, and I would run into Rich at all these different areas. I'm like, damn, you have a hand in all of this? And he's like, yes, we do. And he said that he had, I'm not even going to say what he said, but he gave me a compliment for being very active in learning about the affordable housing infrastructure in Yonkers and Westchester, and the lack of affordable housing and low-income housing infrastructure. So this $500,000, this $500,000 that we got from as part of the appropriations process is a great beginning and a great start, but we have a lot more work to do.
Absolutely.
Chuck said 3 things, and I just want to repeat it and just pause after I say it. Housing is a human right. He said it 3 times. Housing is a human right. I want to add to that. Housing is health care.
Yes.
Housing is health care. Because when you think about the trauma and the stress that people go through when they are living with housing insecurity on a consistent basis, their children cannot concentrate in school, they cannot concentrate at work, the stress impacts their health, it raises their healthcare costs, it disrupts the entire life of so many people. So housing is a human right, and housing is healthcare. And we need 80,000 units at least in Westchester County, because even those with housing, they're living with high rental and mortgage costs as well. So we have to go as big with housing as possible, and we are going to continue to fight for the Build Back Better Act, which had unprecedented investments in housing overall.
And I want to say,
hundreds of billions of dollars.
not to cast aspersions, but Joe Biden had nothing for housing in his BBB. People like Jamal and I got hundreds of billions of dollars put in it. Now we have to get Joe Manchin to go along, and that's an uphill struggle, but we're fighting to get it.
Yes, and we're going to continue to fight to get it. So it's exciting to be here. Thank you all for coming out and joining us and celebrating this moment. But there's a lot more work to be done, both here at the city level, but also at the county, state, and federal level. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. Not one person in our country should be unhoused. Not one at all. Not one person should be unhoused with the wealth that we have in our country. We seek, Chuck and I seek, to end homelessness in our country as we know it, to provide housing for the unhoused, and to provide services for the unhoused. We have to continue to fight to make sure we have housing for our seniors, particularly seniors and others with disabilities. We have to make sure our housing is secure and dignified and prepared for those who are most vulnerable in the county and across the country. And the unhoused epidemic in Yonkers and the housing insecurity in Yonkers and Mount Vernon and parts of New Rochelle in particular is unacceptable. And it has been unacceptable for quite some time. So this is a start, very good start. Let's celebrate this today, but let's continue to be diligent and vigilant because there's so much more work to do. Thank you again, Chuck. Thank you, George. Thank you, Rich. A lot more work to do. Let me pass the mic now to Mr. Sayage, Assemblymember Nader Sayage, to say a few words. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for Nader.
Thank you, Congressman, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. What can we say? New York is blessed when the leadership and the power brokers in D.C. have our heart on their mind and on their soul. It really benefits us, the people. As a representative of Yonkers on the state level, for me, affordable housing is crucial. Healthcare, education, these are all quality of life issues. So when we put our work together, we join our efforts together from the federal, from the state, from the local, and the county. Nobody has been more of a cheerleader than Chuck Schumer. And Jamal Bowman's role as a freshman congressman speaks for itself. And having our county executive, George Latimer, who's been the pillar of representing diversity and representing people of need is commendable. And Rich to Westhab and everyone that's involved in putting together these projects, these initiatives that address serious housing issues, not only here in Yonkers, across the state and the nation, is commendable. I'm proud to join in the effort to be part of the movement that addresses serious issues that impact us in a big way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nader. And next, we have our great county executive, Mr. What's your middle name? George Stephen Latimer.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Senator. You know, when you hear a number like 80,000 units, it's pretty daunting. And it's hard to visualize what 80,000 units represents. When you consider that this building behind us is going to get a renovation for 79 units, that's a little more workable number. But the most important thing is to look at the Graham Brown family and to realize that we're impacting a person's life. That's what this is about. And each unit multiplied out by what the need is. And what's been delivered here today by Senator Schumer, Congressman Bowman, to be able to give the resources to Westhab to make a renovation that's necessary for this particular family and all the other families to have just what we all want, which is a livable environment. And I've heard people say, well, you know, you have these social ideas about how you're going to do this for housing and how you're going to do this for health care and how you're going to do this for education. The missing link is that what we're talking about underneath all of that is economic development. And most of my friends, a little more conservative, they say, what are you doing for economic development? When you house people, when you get child care so that both adults can work if that's what they intend to do, when you provide health care so they can be healthy out in the society, you get them in the workforce producing, and that's economic development. You don't need to throw millions of dollars at an individual who's wealthy for economic development. You need to have economic development from the grassroots up, because when I look at this family, I think of my family 5-6 miles from here. 60 years ago, my dad was a maintenance man. My mom was a factory worker on the south side of Mount Vernon. Neighborhood looked just like this neighborhood. Same situation. When Stan and Loretta had a fighting shot to then raise their children, that we could go on to accomplish it. That's exactly what this family and the other 78 families are trying to do. Now consider for a second how big the United States of America is. It's beyond. You get an airplane and fly 5 hours to the West Coast, right? Take you 3.5 hours to get down to Florida. We're talking about the Congress of the United States that doesn't make decisions for the city of Yonkers or the county of Westchester, or even the state of New York. The responsibilities that Jamal Bowman has, and specifically Chuck Schumer. The United States of America, the Senate of the United States of America is run by this man. And he has a 50-50 balance. He needs the vice president to break a vote. That's what weighs on Chuck Schumer's head every day. And people say, what about cinema, and what about Manchin, and what about this one and that one? And he has the time and the foresight to care about 79 units at 97 Bruce Avenue in Yonkers. That's exceptional. That's exceptional. You consider that prior to this term of office, I'm not running this year, I can be as political as I want. Consider that the Senate was not controlled under Chuck Schumer. He was a minority leader prior to becoming majority leader. And for years, there was a fellow down in Kentucky in the land of bourbon and horses. My daughter lives down there. She would like a different senator. But Chuck Schumer, in a short period of time, with almost no leverage to work with, has delivered not just for Bruce Avenue and Yonkers, but in every one of those places across this country. And every one of those places with congressmen and congresswomen with the skill and set of the ones that we have here and the other congress members that represent Westchester County, that's delivery. So I don't want to hear people tell me, well, you know, I don't know about this Congress here. I'll tell you about this Congress. This Congress fixed 79 units in this House right now. That's what this Congress did. Because Rich Nightingale and his team knows how to run a housing, but they can't do it on hopes and wishes. They need hard resources. And the county has some of that, and the state has some of it. But what Chuck Schumer and Jamal Bowman did today is provide the necessary link to complete this project. And I can tell you, Chuck Schumer's running the Senate. I guarantee you, he's going to be in Westchester in the next 7 days with something else, and he's going to be in Rochester, and he's going to be every other Chester that's in this state, because that's the kind of senator he is. And when you have those kind of representatives in Congress, you show appreciation. Thank you, gentlemen, for what you've done for us. We appreciate it greatly. Senator, we appreciate it.
Thank you, George. And you know, people say, well, you know, yeah, I'm majority leader. But what gives me the strength, this is the toughest job I've ever had, but I have more energy and more enthusiasm for it than any job I've had because it's so damn important. And what gives me that? Meeting people who are going to benefit, seeing Zola and that she will grow up in a better place. That's what gives me the strength and energy to do this. So I love getting around, but it's part of my job to get around too. And with that, let me turn it back to Mr. Nightingale, who is going to talk about a little more about Westhab, which I knew about them and I love them, but I said, what's the name stand for? And it is Westchester Habitat. I thought it was rehabilitation somehow, but it's not.
Thank you. Hey, we have the dream team here in New York. Am I right? You can do a round of applause. It's okay. We're going to wrap up quickly here. I know we want to all hear from the Graham Brown family, so I'm going to have Sam Chavallo from our staff give you just a little bit of project detail on how important this funding is and introduce the Graham Brown family as we wrap up. Thanks, Sam. Who actually does the hard work to make this happen.
Yes.
Thank you, Rich. I will keep it brief so we can hear from the Graham Brown family. Thank you, Senator Schumer, Congressman Bowman. We're so excited to have you here today. Westhab is committed to preserving and creating new affordable housing, and we cannot do that without investments like this. These are critical to this housing. Here at 97 Bruce, we have 12 units. But we have 79 that will receive funding from this grant in South Yonkers. Here at 97 Bruce, we just actually also received 6 project-based vouchers. So
We got a lot of those in the bill.
Yes. So 6 of our residents are now receiving monthly rental assistance, which will further help the building economically. So with this grant, with those vouchers, we have a lot of work to do. And with that, I will turn it over to Pastor Graham Brown and his wife, Frankie.
Yes.
Frankie first?
Frankie first.
Oh my! What? Come on.
Don't give the pastor the mic. You won't get it back.
He had his turn during Easter, so we'll move forward. Thank you so much for having us here. We're elated and excited to represent Westhab. Our story for Westhab began about 4 years ago. A friend of ours informed us of apartment complex that was opening up a lottery of some sort for its residents, and there was a wait list. And at that particular time, we were really struggling for housing, and we had the misfortune of living in a multi-story house on top of our landlord who wasn't quite fond of us. And so, as Congressman Bowman said, there was a lot of times that we stood up at night and we were unsure what we were going to do. Our peace of mind had been stripped because we were so stressed out. And fortunately, just as luck would have it, maybe 2 weeks prior to the deadline of us to be leaving that particular apartment, Westhab called and asked us to come in. And literally, she said, "Can you come in tomorrow?" We said, "What about an hour?" And we ran here and completed all the information that we needed to do. And in a month's time, we were living on the second floor. And we've slept so much better since then. And it's a peace of mind having a place where you can stay that there's not so much stress. And affordable housing, Chuck, means to us peace of mind.
Beautiful. And
without it, I don't know what we do. We love our super that works here. He's amazing. Shout out to Jeff. Can't leave him out.
What's up, Jeff?
Jeff right there.
All right.
And Jeff is wearing a Brooklyn Nets hat.
And our neighbors, we know our neighbors, and everyone looks out for each other, and we make sure that we are a collective unit. It's not a house, but I definitely can say that this is our home.
Beautiful.
And we'd like to stay here as long as possible, and I wouldn't mind a little rent off either. But here you go. There you go.
All right, thank you guys so much. I'll just summarize by saying that, Westhab has been a great and a tremendous blessing for my family. And, they've been talking about the peace of mind. And the peace of mind is real, because we can come home, not too much rambunctious noise.
Oh, we have a parking spot, which is
parking
really
spot,
major.
so that's a blessing.
Just really major.
That's a blessing
That
from
is a
where
big
we,
deal.
where we came from, Luther, Kentucky, and come here. It's a big transition. But we want to, Westhab has really been a blessing, and the neighbors here has been very good. very cordial, very respectful. We help each other out, and so far, we have been doing good so far, and they have not failed us so far.
Yep.
So, I want to thank them for blessing us.
Yeah. Everything. Yeah. We thank you.
Well done, Pastor. And I'm sure his sermon on Easter was a little bit longer. And maybe even more meaningful, but this was very meaningful. Okay, we'll take questions on this subject from the media, for any of us. For Rich, for any of the electeds, or for the family. No? Okay.
Senator, just one question. What else is coming for Yonkers?
Well, there's money that we've already given the city of Yonkers that they're going to start using for a variety of purposes in the ARP bill. There is now the infrastructure bill, which is going to provide money to rehabilitate roads and railroads and transportation and other things like that. And the good news about that bill is there's a local hire provision. So a lot of the new jobs that are going to come from that rehab have to come from the community, from poorer people, from people of color. They get training, and then they have a good job for the rest of their lives and careers. So that's a very good thing as well. There's health care money. We're trying to get money to lower the cost of prescription drugs for people. For instance, insulin. A lot of people here in Yonkers and Westchester County have diabetes, and insulin, there you go. And insulin used to cost $35 a month. Now it costs over $600. We're going to mandate it to go back to $35. There's a whole lot across the board that we're working on.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. It's a beautiful day.
This is
Jamal?
the best part. Best part.
Oh, good. Oh. The proverbial check.
Big check. I was very excited about this.
Okay.
All right.
Now, let Zola get right
Zola,
between.
come on.
You know I'm partial. I have two beautiful girls.
Sam, you in here?
It's hard for me to get a picture of her when she's
Great.
from right here.
Frankie, you were very articulate.
You in?
I'm in. Thank you.
Everyone in?
Yeah.
Where's George? Mr. Latimer.
Come on, George.
He's waiting to lie across the front.
He is waiting for his full introduction. Will George Stephen Latimer please come